Hello, and thanks for clicking on this next Knowledgeable One production. Today, we're going to talk about how to factor trinomials when a is not 1 using the AC method. This is a second way to factor a trinomial when a is not 1. Maybe you've already watched the video on how to use guess and check, which is an effective method if a is a prime number. But if a is not prime, then the AC method is a better way to do that. All right, so let's see how the method works, and then we'll show you how to do some problems. So the AC method works as follows. The goal behind the AC method is to factor by grouping. But the problem is it's a trinomial. A trinomial only has 3 terms. Grouping needs 4. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to increase the number of terms that we have in our polynomial from 3 to 4 so that we can use grouping. Okay, so here's how we're going to do it. The first thing we're going to do is check for a GCF other than 1. All right, we're going to factor that out if we have one. The second thing is then we're going to start using the AC method. To do that, you're going to multiply the A and the C together. Okay, A times C, multiply those numbers together, see what you get. Then it's a little bit of 1 a.m. We're going to find 2 numbers that multiply to be A times C and add up to B. Very similar to what 1 a.m. is, except you got to multiply the A and the C first if we're talking about ax squared plus bx plus c. So you can see that A times C, you have to multiply them first, then figure out the one that adds to B in the middle. Okay? Then we're going to use those 2 numbers that we got to replace the middle term. We're literally going to take the middle term, take it out, and put the 2 numbers that we found in its place. And then we'll have 4 terms, and we can use grouping on it. Okay? All right, so it's a little complicated to explain or show you some steps. Let's show you how it's done. I think it'll make a little bit more sense to you. So we want to factor 12x squared minus 5x minus 2. Okay? This is not a good problem to use guess and check on, because the problem is that 12x squared, it could be a 12x and an x. It could be a 6x and a 2x. It could be a 4x and a 3x. So now you got 3 sets of parentheses. Only one of them, when you multiply, is going to give you the negative 5x in the middle if you find the numbers that multiply to be negative 2. You might be able to find it. Maybe. You may be able to find it pretty quick. If you can, then guess and check is a great method for you throughout this. But if you can't, there's a little bit more of a procedural way to go about doing it, and it'll work every time. It's called the AC method, so let's see how it works. The first thing we're going to do is check and see if there's a GCF. We got a 12, a 5, and a 2. Nothing's in common in all 3. We got an x squared, an x, no variable, so nothing I can take out. So we're going to try the AC method. The AC method is going to take us and multiply the A times the C. So AC multiplied is going to be, foreshadowing there. We got 12 times negative 2, which is negative 24. The 2 numbers have to multiply to be negative 24. The 2 numbers that I find have to add up to negative 5, the middle term. So now I'm looking for the 2 numbers that do that. We can find them pretty easy. The 2 numbers would be negative 8 and 3, right? Negative 8 times 3 is negative 24. Negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the 12x squared and we're going to bring it down to the next line. It stays in the problem. The negative 5x, we are going to swap it out, because we know that if we were to take negative 8x and add 3x, they would add together to be negative 5x. So in place of negative 5x, we're actually going to write negative 8x plus 3x. Feels like we're going the wrong way. Okay? Normally we combine like terms. Now we're going to split it into 2 terms that add together to be that. But if we bring down the negative 2 as well, now we have 4 terms. And when you have 4 terms, you can group it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to group the first 2 terms together. So now it's a grouping problem. Okay, group your next 2 terms together. My first GCF, 12 and 8, 4. 2 powers of x there, 1 there. I can take one out. And now I'm going to write what's left. So this is all grouping now. So 12 over 4 gives me 3. X to the second over x is x. Negative 8 over 4, negative 2. And the x's will knock each other out. That's my first set of parentheses. My next set of parentheses, I'm looking for a GCF between the 3 and the 2. That's 1. It's a positive 1 because that leading term is a positive. And that's it. I got an x there, no x there, can't take it out. So if I divide both of these by positive 1, I'm just going to get 3x minus 2 again. And now my two sets of parentheses match. I'm going to factor it out. And if I do, I would be left with 4x plus 1. And this is the correct answer. This is how it factors. Okay? So we kind of knew, hey, 4x was one and 3x was the other up here from guess and check. But, I mean, you didn't know how to arrange the negative 2 and the 1 to make it happen. Well, maybe the negative 2 went here with the 6 and the 2, right? You'd have to multiply all these out to figure out which one gave you the middle term. This is a fast way to do it if it's not easy to figure out what your choices are or what you might use for your two factors. Okay? It's a fail-proof way to do it. It works all the time. All right, let's try the next one. Same thing. We have 8x squared minus 14x plus 5. Again, we're looking for a GCF. It has 3 terms. No GCF. There's not a 1 in front of the x squared, so I can't use 1am. It's an 8. So I'm going to try this AC method on it again. Again, the 8 leaves a lot of options. It leaves the 8x and the x if you're going to use guess and check. There's also a 4x and a 2x that you could use. It gives you too many options. So we'll use the AC method instead. Okay, so my two numbers, the a times the c. If I do 8 times 5, that's 40. So my two numbers have to multiply to be 40, and they have to add together to be negative 14. So I'm looking for two numbers that do that. We can find them hopefully again pretty easy. Negative 10 and negative 4 are those two numbers. So now we're going to take our first term, the 8x squared. We're just going to bring it down to the next line. The negative 14x, we're going to split up into 2. We're going to take a negative 10x and a negative 4x. And then we're going to bring down the 5, the positive 5. And now we are going to group it. It's got 4 terms. So let's group. Here we go. GCF between the first two, 8x squared and 10x, is 2x. So I'm going to divide each one of these by 2x. It gives me 4x minus 5. And then the next GCF, it leads with a negative, so I need to take a negative out. Between the 4 and the 5 is a 1, and x and nothing, so just negative 1. Divide both of these by negative 1. And we have negative 4 divided by negative 1 is positive 4x. Positive 5 divided by negative 1 is negative 5. And now I'm going to factor out that 4x minus 5. And I knock that out. I'm left with, in parentheses, 2x minus 1. So I get 4x minus 5 times 2x minus 1. And that's my correct answer. It's all done. Now, you might be wondering, maybe you have the question, and we're going to show you. What if instead of writing up here, you said 8x squared minus 10x minus 4x plus 5? Well, what if you did it the other way around? Brought down the 8x squared, you wrote negative 4x minus 10x plus 5. Would you get the same answer? Well, we can try, and let's see what happens. My GCF here between 8x squared and 4x would be a 4, and the x would leave me with 8 divided by 4 is 2. There'll be 1 power of x left. Negative 4 over 4 is negative 1, and the x's knock each other out. The next GCF is going to be negative because it's in the front. Between 10 and 5 is 5, and you got an x there, no x there. So I'm going to divide both of these by negative 5. And we have negative 10 over negative 5 is 2x. 5 over negative 5, negative 1. And now 2x minus 1 is my GCF, so I can factor it out. Here we go. Cross these out. And we'd have 4x minus 5. And that's the correct answer as well. And you can see what happens. Basically, what happens is the GCFs and the parentheses switch positions, right? In the first one here, 4x minus 5 was it left in parentheses. In the second way we did it, 4x minus 5 was the GCF. And then in the first one, 2x minus 1 was the GCF, and then 2x minus 1 became the parentheses, doing it the other way. So it doesn't matter which way you arrange these two numbers, but they do have to be numbers that both multiply to positive 40 and add to negative 14. So the numbers have to be correct. Otherwise, you're not going to get the right answer. Okay, all right, so let's try one more here. We got 10n squared minus 34n plus 8. So let's look for a GCF first, see if we can find something between the 8, 34, and 8. They're all even, so 2 will go in. I'm going to take 2, factor it out. 2 powers of n there, 1 there, none there. Can't take any of those out. Just going to divide them all by 2. Here we go. We have 4n squared minus 17n plus 4. Now, I'm going to look inside. Inside, there are 3 terms. In front of the n squared is not a 1. So I'm going to have to try when a is not 1. So I'm going to try the AC method on this. Here we go. So we have a times c will give me 4 times 4, which is 16. So my two numbers have to multiply to be 16, and they have to add together to be negative 17. So let's see. It's the combo that nobody ever remembers. It's going to be negative 1 and negative 16. All right. Now, this 2 is going to get brought down. We're going to bring it down a little ways here. It's part of my final answer, but I still have to factor the inside now. So we're going to bring down the 4n squared here to the next line. The negative 17n we're going to split up into negative n or negative 1n and negative 16n, and then bring down the plus 4. Now we got 4 terms. Now we're going to group it. GCF between 4 and 1 is 1, and n to the second and n, so I can take an n out. I'm going to divide both these by n or 1n, however you want to do it. 4 divided by 1 is 4. N to the second divided by n is n. Negative 1 divided by 1 is negative 1, and the n's knock each other out. Negative 16n plus 4, so there's a negative leading. I got to take it out. 16 and 4 goes into both. This third term has an n. The last one here does not, so I can't take an n out. I can just take out negative 4. I'm going to divide it. We have negative 16 over negative 4 is positive 4. N. Positive 4 over negative 4 is negative 1. And now, sure enough, my parentheses match. I'm doing this right, so I'm going to come down here. I'm going to factor out the 4n plus 1. And divide both of these by 4n minus 1. Sorry, 4n minus 1. It's not 4n plus 1. Cross these out, and I'm left with 1n or n minus 4. This is the correct answer. Including the 2 times, right? Because we factored out the 2 at the beginning. It still has to be part of my answer. If I ever multiplied the 2 back in, I got to be able to get back to where I started again. That's the whole idea of factoring. Just get back to where you started. Okay? Change the way it looks. Write it in its factors. And if you multiply, you get back to where you started again. Okay? And that's how you use the AC method. And as always, thanks for clicking.